There is a fire that burns in silence. It rises from deep within the chest, travels down the spine, and spreads through the body like an ancient calling. It is desire. This force that pulses between worlds, instinct and consciousness, pleasure and purpose, emptiness and creation. Desire is not the problem. It never was. The problem is when this force is wasted toward nothing, when it burns out before building, when it turns into shame, compulsion, or guilt. But what if desire isn't a mistake? What if it's a portal? Bruce Lipton reminds us that genes don't rule our lives as we once believed. They respond to signals. Signals that come from the environment, yes, but also from our thoughts, our emotions, our internal energy. What do you feel when you feel desire? What vibrates in your body when it urgently longs for something? Do you feel guilty? Do you repress it? Or do you listen? Neville Goddard once said, "Sexual imagination is the ignition point of conscious manifestation, not just because it is powerful, but because it reveals both the purest and the darkest parts of us. It is vibrational raw material, and depending on how it's used, it either creates or destroys." Sexual energy, when ignored, becomes anxiety. When repressed, it becomes frustration. But when recognized, embraced, and redirected, it becomes power, it becomes life, it becomes healing, it becomes manifestation. This is not about sex. It's about energy, about consciousness, about presence. This video is for those tired of getting lost in the cycle of empty pleasure, for those who feel there must be something more, for those who want to stop running from their own body and learn how to use desire as a tool for creation. Because what you deeply desire is also desiring you. It just can't find you while you're still running from your own creative energy. If this message resonates with you, if in some way you feel this is the moment to awaken to what your energy is trying to tell you, consider subscribing to the channel and liking this video. It helps this message reach more people who, like you, are ready to transform desire into direction. And if you want to turn this moment into a turning point, write in the comments, "I choose to transform my desire into direction." Sometimes a single sentence written with the heart is the beginning of a new internal alignment, because commitment to your own energy is the first step toward creating with truth. So the real question becomes, what are you truly desiring? When you feel desire, the desire that consumes instead of creates, to desire is inevitable. It is human. It's what drives life. But what happens when that desire starts to consume instead of build? When instead of igniting purpose, it burns from within like a hunger that finds no satisfaction? Desire, when disconnected from consciousness, becomes lack. And where there is lack, there is the urge for immediate gratification. There is urgency. There is anxiety. There is compulsion. The body feels it. The heart beats faster. The breath shortens. The mind spins around the same image, the same fantasy, the same escape. And the more you try to avoid this fire, the more it burns. Because desire is not meant to be denied, it is meant to be transmuted. And this is the invisible mistake, believing that the path is repression, when the key lies in redirection. When you try to eliminate desire, you wage war against your own nature. But when you observe it without judgment, you begin to see beyond the impulse. You begin to understand what is truly asking to come through. It's not always the body that desires. Sometimes it's the soul. Sometimes what you call physical desire is only the surface of something much deeper. A longing for connection, for recognition, for meaning. Sexual energy is one of the most powerful forms of life energy. If it doesn't find a creative channel, it builds up, and accumulated energy without direction becomes tension. becomes dissatisfaction, becomes discomfort. But with awareness, it becomes fuel. It becomes art, purpose, healing, intuition, focus. When you recognize it, it no longer controls you. It begins to serve you. So every time you feel that desire rising, don't rush to judge it. Don't rush to act. Just feel. Allow it to reveal its true source. Because the desire that consumes is really just waiting for the right moment to create. And that moment begins when you choose to listen. The hidden cycle of sexual self-sabotage. There is a pattern that repeats itself in silence. A cycle that begins with desire, moves through arousal, plunges into momentary relief, and ends in emptiness. And that emptiness disguises itself as boredom, guilt, dissatisfaction, or distraction. But soon, another impulse comes, another craving, and the cycle begins again. As if the body were programmed to repeat a script it never chose. Spiritual neuroscience is starting to explain what the heart has always sensed. The brain, addicted to dopamine, confuses immediate pleasure with real satisfaction. But they are not the same. Pleasure is a discharge, satisfaction is presence. And when the mind is conditioned to seek stimulus without awareness, it creates a habit. And that habit becomes identity. Bruce Lipton shows us that repetitive behaviors form an epigenetic conditioning field. In other words, the body learns to respond as if lack were a matter of survival. And that's not weakness, it's learning. Learning embedded in the skin, the muscles, the nerves. Repeat it until it becomes automatic. What's most subtle is that often the pursuit of pleasure disguises itself as freedom, but there is no freedom when the choice is unconscious. There is no expansion when desire only serves to numb. Self-sabotage doesn't happen because you want to harm yourself, but because your body is simply following what it learned. And what was learned can be reprogrammed. Recognizing this cycle is an act of courage, not to blame yourself, but to awaken. To realize that the repeated impulse is not just repressed desire, it is directionless desire. And when you begin to give it direction, you step out of the spin. Because true power is not in resisting desire, it is in moving through it, consciously, present, whole. The technique of transmutation, what it is and why it was forbidden. To transmute is to transform without erasing. It is to convert impulse into direction. It is to elevate vibration without denying the origin. Sexual transmutation is not a new idea, but it was labeled forbidden because it challenges a system built on control. A system that says either you repress it or you surrender to it completely. Transmutation offers another path, a path of intention. This technique begins with an internal gesture, recognizing desire as a creative seed, not as sin or weakness. Redirecting that force is like climbing an energetic current. The impulse is born at the base, in instinct to act, but it doesn't have to stop there. It can rise, it can travel through the body, it can nourish the mind, open the heart, expand consciousness. What's called forbidden here isn't the practice itself, but the freedom it brings. Because a human being who masters their creative energy without repression is unstoppable. They don't depend on the system. They're not distracted by external promises. They create from within, and that's threatening. It breaks everything we've been taught about desire and power. Transmutation is not abstinence. It's not pretending that desire doesn't exist. It's looking at it clearly. It's feeling the power in every cell and asking, what can I create with this? Where can I take this force if I don't try to hide it? When you stop being ashamed of your own energy, you set it free. And once it's free, it doesn't pull you off course. It propels you forward. This technique doesn't require a complex ritual. It requires presence, listening, a decision. because desire doesn't ask permission to exist, but it does ask for direction in order to flourish. And when you decide truthfully to transmute, you stop being dragged by impulse, and you start being guided by creation. The fatal mistake, using desire as distraction instead of a lever. There's an almost invisible detail that makes all the difference. Sometimes, desire doesn't arise as true longing, but as escape. It disguises itself as passion, curiosity, arousal, but deep down, it carries an attempt to run away, to flee pain, emptiness, silence. And it's in this unconscious movement that desire gets lost. It stops being a bridge and becomes a distraction. When desire is used to avoid feeling, it doesn't create, it numbs. It keeps the mind busy but disconnects the soul. And in that disconnection, everything feels urgent, but nothing feels essential. You feel like you want something, but that want has no roots, no direction, and so it never satisfies. True manifestation begins with a desire that is whole, one that isn't trying to cover a wound, but to reveal a purpose. Because desire becomes a lever when it's born from awareness, when it's full of truth, when it's not trying to hide pain, but to transform a force. That doesn't mean feeling desire in hard times is wrong. It simply means you must observe where it comes from. What's the source? What is it trying to show you? Often, the body longs because the soul is trying to reconnect. But if that desire is used to distract, to avoid what hurts, it becomes fragmented. And when it fragments, it doesn't manifest. It just keeps spinning in the same loop. Desire is not quick relief. It is a long road. It is a force that requires alignment to become construction. When you use desire as a lever, you rise with it. But if you use it as a distraction, you end up stuck in the cycle. And the difference between the two is presence. It's listening. It's choosing. How your energy responds to your desire. Everything vibrates. Everything in you. Every thought, every emotion, every intention emits a frequency. And when desire arises, it amplifies that frequency. It intensifies the field around you. But what often goes unnoticed is that the universe doesn't respond to desire alone. It responds to the vibration that comes with it. And that vibration is shaped not by what you want, but by what you feel while wanting. The electromagnetic field of the heart is 5,000 times stronger than that of the brain. It is through the heart that you emit your purest vibrational signature. And when sexual desire is ignited, that field expands. It becomes stronger, more charged, more perceptible. But if that power is laced with guilt, fear, or denial, it emits incoherence. And incoherence does not manifest clearly. Manifestation is only precise when there is coherence between what you think, what you feel, and what you vibrate. If you desire with the body, but doubt with the heart, the vibration becomes fragmented, and the reality that comes back is confusing, limited, partial. Not because the desire is weak, but because the field is misaligned. Sexual energy can open incredible doors, but only if aligned with the heart's intention. When desire is born of consciousness, it carries direction. It doesn't seek only pleasure, it seeks connection. It doesn't ask just for release, it asks for fulfillment, and that difference changes everything. It's not about controlling the energy. It's about tuning it, like a radio station that must be set to the right frequency to be heard clearly. Your external reality will always echo your internal vibration, and desire is the amplifier. When well directed, it doesn't just manifest. It reveals who you are becoming. Imagine desire as fire, a primal ancient fire pulsing in your core, as if carrying the memory of everything you've yet to live. That fire can burn, yes. It can consume, yes. But it can also warm, transform, Forge. The same fire that destroys also molds gold, and it's in that metaphor that the truth of transmutation lives. Internal alchemy isn't something magical or too mystical to be lived. It is profoundly real. It happens every time you choose to welcome the impulse instead of resisting it. Every time, in the face of desire, you pause, breathe, and ask, what is this trying to show me? Desire by itself is neutral. What changes it is the consciousness surrounding it. When guided only by lack, it acts like an uncontrolled wildfire. But when crossed with presence, it becomes sacred fire. Not the fire that consumes, but the one that purifies. The one that transforms the raw into the radiant. The one that reveals, in the heat, the precise shape of your power. This alchemy does not happen from the outside in. It doesn't come from technique, rule, or doctrine. It is born from your gaze, from your touch, from your listening, from the conscious choice to allow desire to rise, not as an escape, but as a return to yourself, to your center, to your purpose. And it's not about denying passion, pleasure, or the body. It's about integrating them. Remembering that instinct and consciousness are not enemies. They are allies. The body knows, the soul guides, and when they walk together, the fire doesn't wound. It forges, it illuminates, it reveals the gold that was always there, hidden but whole, waiting to be touched by the light of your own truth. When the mind quiets, the body speaks. And in that space of listening, you can begin to dialogue with your energy in a new way. Transmutation also happens when you offer your desire a new path. And that path flows through consciousness, through breath, through touch, through full presence in the moment. Close your eyes. Bring to mind an image that represents something you want to manifest. Not just a thing, but a feeling, a frequency, a state of being. See that image taking shape within you. Now bring your attention to your solar plexus. Gently touch that point and breathe. Breathe deeply, as if blowing new life into your vibrational field. With each inhale, imagine this energy rising, from the base to the top, from instinct to awareness, from tension to clarity. This is the path of transmutation. It's not about control, it's about allowing. It's not about repression, it's about redirection. That conscious touch on your body is not just physical, it's symbolic. It's as if you're saying to yourself, I give myself permission to transform. The key question in this process isn't, what do I want? It's, what is my desire trying to show me about myself? Because sometimes what you want is not what you need. And sometimes what you need is hidden behind what you keep denying. Desire, when truthfully heard, doesn't scream, it guides. This practice doesn't require time or a special place. It requires surrender. It requires that you show up fully. Because it's not about technique, it's about a vibrational decision. A silent commitment to your own energy. A subtle pact between what you feel and what you choose to do with it. And in that space, between breath and touch, transformation begins. The trap of unconscious guilt. There are feelings you learned before you even had the words to name them. One of them is guilt. It doesn't arrive loudly. It creeps in like a mist, subtle but constant. And when it comes to desire, this guilt hides even more, cleverly. It blends with shame, old narratives, repressed memories. And when left unrecognized, it poisons. Many people carry, without realizing it, the belief that feeling desire is wrong. That there's something dirty or dangerous about wanting with the body. This belief didn't start with you. It was learned. It was inherited. From religious stories, family silences, looks that said more than words. And even if today you see yourself as free and aware, That guilt may still be vibrating quietly in the background. Sexual energy, when filtered through guilt, doesn't flow. It contracts. It clenches. It creates a field of vibrational incoherence. Because at the same time you desire, you sabotage yourself for desiring. It's as if your intention says yes, but your unconscious whispers no. And the universe hears both. Transmuting is also this, freeing yourself from guilt. Not denying it, but looking it in the eye, asking where it comes from, whose guilt it is, whether it still belongs to you. Because often, guilt is not a sign that something is wrong. It's just an old echo, asking to be updated, an outdated program trying to run in a new consciousness. When you acknowledge guilt without becoming it, it loses power. When you welcome yourself in your desire, instead of judging yourself, something realigns. Because desire doesn't need to be purified. It is already sacred. It just needs to be remembered as such. And that remembrance begins the moment you decide that feeling is not a sin. It is presence. It is power. It is permission to exist fully. How the body stores and releases sexual energy. The body doesn't forget. It holds every unfulfilled impulse, every unexpressed emotion, every desire that was repressed without awareness. And when that energy doesn't find an outlet, it doesn't vanish. It accumulates. It condenses. It waits for a space to move. And this silent buildup shapes the way you feel, think, and relate with others and with yourself. Bruce Lipton explains that emotions directly influence how genes express themselves. That means what you feel not only affects your mood, it can alter your biology. When sexual energy is repressed, the body may manifest tension, insomnia, irritability, or even a constant emptiness that nothing external seems to fill. It's not just emotion, it's stagnant energy. But the same body that stores can also release. And release doesn't mean explode. It means flow. Through conscious breathing, through movement, through present touch. Practices like Tantra, vibrational meditation, and deep presence are ways of unlocking that accumulated energy. They don't force, they invite. They guide the energy back into its natural rhythm. When you allow this energy to flow again, it doesn't scatter, it reorganizes. And instead of pulling you out of yourself, it anchors you in your center. It's like opening the windows of a house closed for years. The air shifts, the light enters, the vibration rises. Not because you controlled desire, but because you created space for it to breathe. Your body is not your enemy. Your desire is not a mistake. They are messengers. They are portals. And when you begin to listen to them with respect, without fear, without judgment, they stop screaming. Because energy, when well received, doesn't invade. It guides. It heals. It reminds you of who you are. Every cycle begins with an impulse, a subtle movement in the body, a memory that awakens, an image that sparks. That is desire. But what happens after that impulse defines everything. If the impulse turns into dispersion, the cycle repeats. But if it is guided with awareness, it transforms. And that transformation begins when desire meets a clear intention. To desire without intention is like lighting a candle in an empty room. There is light, but no direction. Intention is what shapes the energy. It says, "This is where I want to go." It doesn't eliminate the instinct, it aligns it. And that alignment is what allows the next step to happen. Action. Conscious action isn't necessarily something grand. Sometimes it's breathing before responding. Sometimes it's choosing to wait. Sometimes it's creating. But it's always a gesture that confirms what intention has already revealed. A gesture that says, "I'm not just feeling, I'm choosing." And that choice, even subtle, begins to carve new pathways in the body, the brain, and the energy. Bruce Lipton affirms that a new behavior, repeated with enough emotion, creates a new circuit. Repetition without awareness maintains the old pattern, but repetition with presence installs a new possibility. The body then stops merely reacting. It begins to respond, and in that response, reprogramming is born. Desire, intention, action, 3 points of the same triangle. When aligned, they create coherence, they create direction, they create a clear vibration that the universe understands and responds to. Not because you forced it, but because you aligned. And when you align, you don't need to chase. Life begins to move at the same frequency as who you truly are. Why most people fail when trying to manifest using sexual energy. Most people don't fail due to lack of desire, nor from lack of effort. They fail because of a subtle disconnect between what they want and what they vibrate. They ask with their bodies, but deny with their unconscious. They want to create, but carry unresolved stories, unexamined fears, untransformed guilt. And that internal noise generates a scrambled frequency, a vibration that confuses the field. Manifesting with sexual energy is like trying to light a flame with a wet match. The potential is there, but if the foundation is compromised, the spark won't hold. It's not enough to visualize. It's not enough to repeat affirmations. You have to feel as if it's already true. Feel from within. Feel with your whole body. Feel with an unguarded heart, and that feeling only arises when there is vibrational coherence. Incoherence happens when you visualize abundance, but still vibrate scarcity. When you long for love, but still believe you don't deserve to be seen. When you say yes, but feel no. And the universe doesn't respond to what you say. It responds to what you are. In silence. At your core. In the unseen. Joe Dispenza says that a new state of being only installs when body, mind, and emotion are in the same place. That's coherence. That's presence. And it's in that state that manifestation becomes possible. Because there is no more resistance, no more division. The field organizes. And what once felt distant starts to draw near, not through effort, but through resonance. Transmuting sexual energy for manifestation requires clarity. It requires listening. It requires surrender. But above all, it requires commitment to your own truth. Because only those with the courage to stop hiding from themselves can manifest with power. And that courage begins when desire stops being a plea and becomes a vibrational affirmation. And sometimes, that courage is born in the silence of pain. It comes after a rupture, after a deep exhaustion. That's how it happened with her. A woman who, for a long time, carried in her body the marks of repressed desire. Her name is Clara, but it could be yours, mine, or anyone who has ever felt torn between what they feel and what they think they should feel. For years, she lived in silence. A thick, almost invisible silence, yet present in every choice, every relationship, every attempt to find herself. The desire was there, but not as power. It was a weight, a memory of something that had always felt wrong. And then her body began to scream, not with words, but with symptoms, with blockages, with pains no one could explain. It was at that point Clara stopped. And in the depth of that pause, she listened. She heard that desire didn't need to be conquered or erased. It needed to be recognized, re-sanctified. She began drawing closer to herself, not with ready-made formulas, but with small rituals of presence, breathing, writing, touch, permission. And in that listening, she discovered something that changed everything. Desire was a map. And where there was pain, there was also a calling. Ideas began to come. Old dreams started to pulse again. And little by little, that stagnant energy became movement. The anxiety became creation, the guilt, compassion, the repression, expression. Clara created a space of healing, a project that became a mission, a place where other women could also rewrite their relationship with their bodies, their fire, their stories. She didn't extinguish her desire, she elevated it. She offered it to the world, and in doing so, she not only healed herself, she helped others heal too. This story is not about miraculous recovery, it's about deep reconnection. It's about remembering that what burns inside you is not against you. It's simply waiting for the moment when you stop running and begin to listen. The most powerful energy is within you, and always has been. There is a force that has never abandoned you, that never stopped pulsing, even when you doubted yourself. Even when you were taught to fear your own body, your own emotion, your own desire. That force lives in you. It vibrates in every cell. It waits patiently for the moment you choose to stop running and start returning. Bruce Lipton shows us that we are not prisoners of our genes. We are living expressions of our beliefs, our emotional states, our choices. And Joe Dispenza adds, the mind, when aligned with the body, creates a new state of being. Sexual energy is a direct portal to that state, but only if you know how to cross it with awareness. To transmute is not to eliminate desire. It is to restore its sacred place. It's to remember that this force, which so often seemed uncontrollable, is also your greatest ally. It is the bridge between what you feel and what you can create, between what has been and what can be. If this message awakened something in you, there is a next step, a deeper dive that awaits you right there in the video on screen now. It's not a continuation, it's an expansion, as if the same energy that brought you here is guiding you further, with ease, with truth, with intention. It's not about becoming someone else. It's about allowing your truth, the one that has always been there, to rise, without fear, without guilt, with presence, with intention, with love. If this video made sense to you, if something within you recognized itself in this message, share it in the comments with a simple phrase, I choose to live my energy with consciousness. Because sometimes, writing is sealing a vibrational commitment with what is already being born inside of you. And remember, what you deeply desire is also desiring you, but it can only find you when you stop running from your own light, from your own strength, from your own fire.